You didn't come here by accident. Something deeper than curiosity led you to this moment, to these words, to this recognition that's been stirring within you for longer than you care to admit. And by the time you reach the end of this, you'll understand why this isn't just another video crossing your path. This is a calling from something ancient within you, a quiet nudge from your soul that has been guiding you without noise or spectacle. Because shadow integration is not a loud, dramatic transformation. It doesn't come with fireworks or grand declarations. It's something quiet, almost imperceptible, a silent journey that unfolds inwardly. It's not about becoming someone entirely new with external changes. It's about reclaiming what was always yours but got buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. It's about remembering the wholeness you were born with before you learned to split yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts. This kind of transformation doesn't shout, it whispers. It feels like waking up one day and realizing you no longer need to wage war against parts of yourself. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to be perfect, trying to hide your darkness, trying to maintain an image that was never truly you. Carl Jung once said that we cannot change anything until we accept it. And acceptance, he knew, doesn't mean resignation. It means integration. It means making the unconscious conscious, bringing your shadow into the light, not to destroy it, but to dance with it. You've done something most people will never dare to do. You've turned toward your shadow instead of running from it. You've faced the darkness within yourself and discovered it wasn't the monster you thought it was. And now, something that was once your greatest enemy has become your most powerful ally. The signs are there. Quiet, unmistakable, profound. They're written in how you respond to life now versus how you used to react. They're evident in the peace that has replaced the war that once raged inside you. They're clear in the way your energy no longer scatters in fear, but moves with purpose and clarity. Because when your shadow is no longer dominating your energy, when it's finally integrated rather than suppressed, your entire existence shifts into a new frequency. A frequency that doesn't need to defend itself, doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't need to hide. And today, we're going to explore the unmistakable signs that this integration has taken root within you. Signs that your shadow has transformed from your greatest enemy into your most trusted ally. The voice inside your head used to be your harshest critic. It was relentless, cruel, unforgiving. It would attack you with the precision of someone who knew exactly where your deepest wounds lived. Every mistake became evidence of your unworthiness. Every flaw became proof that you were fundamentally broken. That voice wasn't just critical, it was vicious, and you believed it because it sounded so much like truth. But something has shifted. That inner critic hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer your enemy. It's become something else entirely. An advisor, a guide, someone who speaks with honesty but not cruelty, with clarity but not condemnation. You've learned to hear the message without absorbing the poison. You've discovered that underneath all that harsh criticism was a part of you desperately trying to protect you the only way it knew how. Your shadow held all the voices that once cut you down, all the judgments you internalized, all the shame that felt too heavy to carry consciously. But now, instead of being at war with these voices, you've made peace with them. You listen, you discern, you choose what serves you and gently set aside what doesn't. The inner dialogue that once felt like a battlefield has become a conversation between different parts of yourself, all working toward the same goal, your wholeness. You no longer punish yourself for having difficult thoughts. You don't shame yourself for feeling anger, jealousy, or fear. These emotions arise, and instead of pushing them away or drowning in them, you meet them with curiosity. What are you trying to tell me? You ask. What do you need? And in that space of acceptance, something miraculous happens. The emotions transform, they become information, they become wisdom, they become allies in your journey toward understanding yourself more completely. This shift in your relationship with your inner world changes everything. Because when you're no longer fighting a war inside your own mind, when you're no longer divided against yourself, your energy consolidates. It becomes focused, powerful, directed. You stop exhausting yourself with internal conflict and start using that energy to create, to grow, to become who you were always meant to be. But inner peace is only the beginning. Because when your internal dialogue transforms, something even more profound begins to shift in how you respond to the world around you. There was a time when your emotions controlled you completely. Someone would say something, and you would explode. Someone would look at you wrong, and you would spiral. Your feelings were like wild horses, dragging you wherever they wanted to go, and you had no choice but to hold on and hope you survived the ride. Your shadow held all the unexpressed rage, the unprocessed hurt, the unacknowledged pain, and it would erupt through you in moments when you least expected it, often in ways that left you feeling ashamed and out of control. But now, there's space. Space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Space between the trigger and your reaction. Space that didn't exist before because your shadow was running the show, reacting from old wounds, old fears, old patterns that had nothing to do with the present moment. You've learned to pause, not because you've become emotionless or detached, but because you've integrated the parts of yourself that used to react unconsciously. Your anger is still there, but it's no longer explosive. It's focused. It tells you when boundaries have been crossed, when something needs to change, when action is required. Your sadness is still there, but it's no longer overwhelming. It connects you to your heart, to your compassion, to your humanity. Your fear is still there, but it's no longer paralyzing. It warns you of real danger, guides you towards safety, helps you make wise decisions. The shadow emotions that once dominated your energy have become messengers rather than masters. They arise, they deliver their information, and then they pass through you like weather passing through the sky. You feel them fully without being consumed by them. You honor them without being controlled by them. And in that honoring, in that integration, you discover something profound. Your emotions become your allies instead of your enemies. People notice this change in you. They see how you handle conflict differently now, how you respond to stress with a calmness that wasn't there before, how you navigate difficult situations with a grace that seems to come from somewhere deep within you, because it does. It comes from the place where your light and your shadow have learned to dance together instead of fighting for control. Yet this emotional mastery reveals something even more telling about your transformation. Because when you stop reacting from your wounds, you also stop seeing those wounds reflected back at you in everyone else. You used to see your own reflection everywhere. In the person who was too aggressive, you saw the anger you couldn't accept in yourself. In the person who was too needy, you saw the desperation you tried so hard to hide. In the person who was too confident, you saw the arrogance you feared you possessed. Your shadow was constantly showing up in other people, and you were constantly judging them for displaying the very qualities you had disowned within yourself. But projection requires unconsciousness. It requires you to be blind to the parts of yourself you've rejected. And you're no longer blind. You've looked into your own darkness and found it wasn't as terrifying as you thought. You've embraced the parts of yourself you once considered unacceptable. You've integrated your capacity for selfishness, for cruelty, for weakness, for all the human qualities you once believed good people shouldn't have. Now, when you encounter difficult people, you don't see monsters. You see humans carrying the same struggles you've learned to carry with compassion. The person who triggers you doesn't become the enemy. They become a mirror, showing you perhaps where you still have work to do, or simply reflecting back the human condition you've learned to accept in yourself. Your judgment softens, not because you've become naive or boundaryless, but because you've stopped fighting a war with the parts of humanity that exist within you too. This shift is profound. Your relationships transform. You no longer need people to be perfect to love them. You no longer need to fix others to feel whole yourself. You can see people as they are, flaws and all, and meet them there. Because you've learned to meet yourself in your flaws, in your imperfections, in your beautifully messy humanity. The energy you once spent judging others returns to you. The mental space you once occupied with criticism becomes available for creativity, for growth, for presence. You discover that when you stop trying to change everyone around you, when you stop projecting your shadow onto them, you actually have the energy to work with what's yours to work with. Yourself. And this is where the magic truly begins. Because when you reclaim all that energy, you are unconsciously giving away through projection. Something extraordinary awakens within you. Your shadow held more than just your pain and your darkness. It held your power, your wildness, your raw, untamed creative force. All the parts of yourself you deemed too much, too intense, too different were locked away in the shadow, and with them went your ability to create from your authentic core. You were trying to be creative from only half of yourself, and wondering why everything felt forced, why nothing felt truly alive. But integration changes everything. When you reclaim your shadow, you reclaim your power. The very qualities you once tried to suppress become the source of your greatest creative breakthroughs. Your sensitivity, which you once saw as weakness, becomes the depth from which your art flows. Your intensity, which you once tried to dim, becomes the fire that fuels your passion. Your darkness, which you once feared, becomes the rich soil from which your most authentic expression grows. You stop creating what you think people want to see and start creating what needs to come through you. You stop editing yourself before you even begin and start allowing the fullness of who you are to show up in your work, in your relationships, in your life. There's a wildness to your creativity now, an authenticity that wasn't there when you were trying to create from only the acceptable parts of yourself. This unleashing of creative energy doesn't just show up in traditional creative pursuits. It shows up in how you live your life. The way you solve problems becomes more innovative. The way you approach challenges becomes more flexible. The way you express yourself becomes more genuine. You've stopped trying to fit into boxes that were never meant to contain your fullness, and in that freedom, your true creative nature emerges. People are drawn to this authenticity. They can feel the difference between something created from wholeness versus something created from fragmentation. Your integrated shadow gives your creative expression a depth, a richness, a power that can't be manufactured or faked. It comes from the place where all of you is present, where nothing is hidden, where every part of your human experience is available as material for creation. But perhaps the most profound sign of all is yet to come. There was a time when you needed everything to make sense. You needed to be either good or bad, strong or weak, light or dark. The world was black and white, and you were constantly trying to figure out which side you belonged on. Your shadow held everything that didn't fit into your narrow definition of who you were allowed to be. And that division, that splitting, created a constant internal tension that exhausted you. But wisdom isn't found in choosing sides. Wisdom is found in integration, in learning to hold contradictions without needing to resolve them, in becoming comfortable with the truth that you are both kind and cruel, both generous and selfish, both wise and foolish. You are a human being, which means you contain multitudes. You're vast enough to hold it all. Your shadow work has taught you that paradox isn't something to be solved. It's something to be lived. You can be deeply spiritual and beautifully human. You can be strong and vulnerable. You can be confident and uncertain. You can be all of these things, sometimes even in the same moment. And it doesn't make you confused or inconsistent. It makes you complete. This comfort with paradox changes how you move through the world. You no longer need to present a perfect image. You no longer need to have all the answers. You no longer need to be anything other than exactly who you are in any given moment. And that freedom, that authenticity, that wholeness radiates from you in ways that are unmistakable. When your shadow is integrated, when it's no longer dominating your energy but dancing with it, you become a walking example of what it means to be fully human. You show others that it's possible to embrace all of who you are. You demonstrate that healing doesn't mean becoming perfect, it means becoming whole. And wholeness, true wholeness, is the most powerful force in the universe. You've stopped trying to be the light and started being the full spectrum. You've stopped rejecting your darkness and started using it as compost for your growth. You've stopped fighting the war within yourself and started celebrating the peace that comes from integration. And in that peace, in that wholeness, in that complete acceptance of your full humanity, you've found something that can never be taken from you. You've found yourself. These signs don't appear overnight. They are not dramatic revelations that burst into your awareness with noise and spectacle. They're quiet shifts, subtle changes, gentle transformations that happen so gradually you might not even notice them at first. But one day, you look back and realize you're no longer the person you used to be. You're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer running from your darkness. You're no longer pretending to be someone you're not. Your shadow, which once felt like your greatest enemy, has become your most trusted ally. The parts of yourself you once rejected have become sources of strength. The emotions you once feared have become guides. The darkness you once avoided has become fertile ground for growth. And you realize that this was always the goal. Not to eliminate your shadow, but to integrate it. Not to become perfect, but to become whole. Carl Jung knew this truth. He understood that our shadows don't disappear when we do the work. They transform, they become conscious, they become choice rather than compulsion. They become wisdom rather than wound. And when that transformation happens, when that integration occurs, we become something magnificent. We become fully ourselves. If you recognize yourself in these signs, if you feel that quiet, knowing that says you've walked this path, then know this. You haven't just healed. You've become powerful. You haven't just integrated your shadow. You've reclaimed your wholeness. And that wholeness, that integration, that beautiful, messy, complete humanity you've learned to embrace is your gift to the world. Because when someone has done the work to integrate their shadow, when they've learned to hold all of who they are with compassion, they become a living invitation for others to do the same. Your very existence becomes proof that it's possible. Your presence becomes healing. Your authenticity becomes permission for others to be authentic too. If this video helped you awaken a recognition within you, if you're feeling that quiet stirring that says, yes, this is my journey too, then like this video and subscribe for more insights into the shadow integration and your inner transformation. Remember, you are no longer dominated by your shadow. You are dancing with it, and in that dance, in that integration, in that beautiful wholeness, you have found your way home to yourself. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of all.